All right. My name is Mac Russell. Systematic racism in the U.S. public schools has impacted the discipline for African American students. The question is how? All right. Implicit bias is the unconscious bias towards someone who is different in race or gender than you. According to the U.S. Department of Education, African Americans are 3 times more likely to be suspended or expelled, and they make up for 50% of all suspensions. This is Malik Johnson. He's a student at the North Seattle Elementary School, recognized for being particularly bright and athletically gifted. The first time he was suspended, he was only in the 3rd grade. His mother received numerous administrative calls saying that he has shouted inappropriately in the lunchroom, jumped 2 stairs at a time, fidgeted in his seat too much, etc. The school kept track of every infraction of Malik's father. The school kept track of every infraction that he's made in a little notebook. Malik's father asked him, "How many other kids are you doing this for?" They replied, "No one, just Malik." The suspensions continued, and Malik missed an estimate of 5 weeks of school, including field trips. His parents have only made the concrete solution that it is strictly justice race. And Malik said that he felt like the school did not want him there. While their diversity has increased over the past year, so have the disciplinary rates for schools, especially for African American students. Courtesy of the Seattle Times, this graph illustrates suspension rates for Seattle elementary school students. The orange line up here represents African American students, and as you can see, it obviously towers all other ethnic groups such as white, Hispanic, etc. Implicit bias isn't new or limited to public schools. Clinton's crime control measures in the 1980s increased the incarceration rates for low-level drug dealers. 2 federal laws made the punishment for distributing crack cocaine 100 times more greater than the punishment for powder cocaine. Crack dealers were typically black, and cocaine dealers were typically white. While users of these drugs were both black and white, crack dealers received harsher penalties and more jail time. So what's the solution? Empathy. A universal truth is that empathy strengthens relationship. Here are 3 possible ways that we can grow in public schools around race. The first one is relatable learning content. When students can connect with the content, it's easier to comprehend the lesson. Teaching high school since 2004, Kadhir Ragipul says, teachers must incorporate relatable aspects of students' daily lives into curriculum. Such as familiar aspects include language, prior knowledge, extracurricular interests, such as music and sports. Once the students feel comfortable in how the teacher talks about and discusses the academic material, they will feel comfortable enough to focus and try to learn the content. Limitations are that not all curriculum is relatable in the classroom. Content that relates to one group could alienate another, and that students could feel pressure to blend in. Now, a second solution that could work is teachers receiving cultural awareness and bias training. Cultural awareness and bias training for educators equips teachers to authentically engage with students from other cultural backgrounds. This offers a platform to grow empathy as teachers become more sensitive to their students' cultures. I believe this would improve student and teacher relationships. Dr. Christy M. Bird, a teacher of teachers at NC State University, says that culturally relevant teachers also create classroom climates that are respectful and inclusive, and that help students value and understand the culture of their peers. This solution does have limitations, though. The training may not be as effective for some teachers, changing nothing about their interactions with minority students, thus making the training very ineffective. And some teachers may not buy into the training if they don't think it's necessary. Now, the best solution I've been able to come up is increased diversity exposure for both teachers and students. This could include learning content and books. For example, a deeper focus on historical figures that are of color, studying literature with main characters of color and or written by authors of color, or stories about people of color. But even better, having guest speakers of color visit schools, invite community members of color to volunteer in the school, and best of all, increasing racial diversity among the school's own faculty and administration. While this solution requires a great level of awareness and intentionality, it also offers the deepest potential for empathy. Empathy happens in relationship, and more face-to-face diversity exposure, the greater potentiality for implicit bias to truly dissolve. The bottom line is the majority of public school kids are children of color, and it's unlikely for new normal to change. The Department of Education reported in 2016 that the nation's 50.4 million public school students, 24.6 million were white and 25.9 million were kids of color. The complexion of our classrooms is changing. It's crucial that we become more aware of our individual biases and think differently about how we approach students and how we staff and equip our teachers and administrators. By increasing opportunity to build relationship across races, we grow empathy and kill the implicit bias at the root.
What evidence did you gather that you didn't use, and why did you choose not to use it?
Evidence that I gathered that I decided not to use was evidence that talked about increasing diversity in schools. The evidence that I found was very broad, and it didn't really help me make a solid solution to my argument.
What might be the real-world implications or consequences of your findings?
I hope real-world implications are what I hope to be to create a dialogue with teacher and administrators around implicit bias, hoping that our administrators and teachers kind of address the issue of implicit bias more as they would with any other kind of issue within their school. I would like to see more of a racial mix of teachers in our school, and just I hope real world implications that there will be change in our schools and as well as in our community.